Hello, all. Welcome to this series of fan engagement where we are talking to some passionate IPL fans and trying to understand the factors that motivate them to follow a particular IPL franchise very passionately season after season. So, in this series, today we have Dinesh Babu with us. There is a curious story of Dinesh Babu. He's from Madurai, which is 500 kilometers south of Chennai, and the interesting fact is that he doesn't follow Chennai Super Kings. He follows Rajasthan Royals very passionately. As you can see, he's wearing the Super Royals t-shirt. So he's a member of Rajasthan Royals Super Royal fan group, which is the official fan group of Rajasthan Royals. And he has been following Rajasthan Royals since the very first season. And he is a Rahul Dravid fan. So another interesting point that Rahul Dravid started his IPL career for Royal Challengers Bangalore, not Rajasthan Royals. But Dinesh started following Rajasthan Royals since 2008. So my very first question is that as a Rahul Dravid fan, why didn't you follow Royal Challengers Bangalore and why did you start following Rajasthan Royals from the very first season 2008?
First of all, it's an absolute pleasure and privilege for me to be here. So thanks for the chance, Steve. So to answer your question, yeah, it's an obvious question. So the very first match of the IPL was between KKR and RCB. So just like any cricket freak or any Rahul Dravid fan, I was just watching the cricket match between KKR and RCB, and the result of that particular match is not something that I can feel very happy about. Brendan McCullum went for as many as he can, 158 not out. So it's not just about the result, but IPL was something that we had been looked so high on. Right from the inaugural season. So I was just looking at every single match, and the RCB versus KKR was one such match, and the very next match too. I was watching it. It was a CSK match. So as I had been watching every single match. The team that had an immediate impact on me was Rajasthan Royals. The first match was actually a defeat for Rajasthan Royals. If I'm not wrong, that was against the Delhi Capitals, Delhi Daredevils then. Right from the second match, they had really shown that they're a team that are capable to stand in line with the other teams. Right from the second match, the second match was against KXIP, Kings 11 Punjab, led by Yuvraj Singh. So they had started winning from there, and they stopped only the final match where they had clinched the trophy. So the point which I'm trying to say here is Rajasthan Royals were the underdogs even there, even in that season. So I had a curiosity on how they are going to actually perform that particular season. Say if you look at KKR was led by Ganguly. If you look at RCB was led by Rahul Dravid. If you look at CSK was led by MS Dhoni. But if you look at Rajasthan Royals, whom were they relying to? They were relying on Shane Warne, whom not much of the Indian fans could relate about. So I was having a keen eye on them. Being termed as an underdog, I was actually having so much curiosity on them. And when they actually started performing the way they did, I had instantly been inspired by the team. That it's not about whom you have; it's all about what the 11 playing 11 are going to play, and that is what is going to produce the result, and not the big names. So I was following RCB, but RR was actually the first team, just because of the way they had actually conducted themselves and how they had been performing. So right from that day till today, I've been a super royal. I've been a super fan of Rajasthan Royals, and I'm been privileged with the super royal dignity as well. Happy with that.
So that's a great answer to start with. So my next question to you is, as a cricket analyst, when you see Rajasthan Royals, so they started relying on data very much than other, I guess very early than other teams. So I guess after KKR, Rajasthan Royals relied on data very much during auctions and picking the players and selecting that. So as an analyst, when you see a team investing so much on data and trying to find out which Indian players, local players will fit into the squad and all these things. So how does that motivate you as a fan?
So actually, data is something that speaks hell lot of story. Uh, it's not just because of the stardom of a player or a popularity or a fame of a player that has to be considered while taking a person or a teammate into a team. But what I feel is the actual performance, the numbers that he had shown. So I think data is actually something that comes into the matter. But whereas if you see most of the franchises, they're actually fame driven, they're actually popularity driven, where most of the fan base or following is actually relied on single player or a particular player that had been pulled into the side. So it's not a good sign when it comes to a proper culture that you're talking about, where you just need to create a brand for yourself. The team is in such an urge to create a brand for itself. So the management is, I mean, it's too extreme, I would feel. One is data driven and one is fame driven. So some teams are actually relying on being fame driven. They take the players who are popular and famous and they make the brand out of the players. That is one separate extreme. The other one is actually data driven, where the numbers do matter. The players numbers are actually taken into consideration, and they are building a brand by the numbers. They are building a brand by the performance itself. So for someone who is actually a cricket freak, who actually believes a lot on the numbers and the performance rather than players profile itself, I mean, which is actually fame driven or a popularity driven, it actually inspires you at the instant. You're actually dumbstruck and awestruck when a team actually relies on the numbers, relies on the records rather than the player himself. So that is, I mean, that is an important point that actually Rajasthan Royals has actually been doing for the last 12 or 13 years, and they will continue to do that. And as a fan, I'm really, really happy that they're able to do that. And Kumar Sangakkara has been able to do that this time as well. So as an RR fan, I'm really happy. And that is where they are. I mean, Rajasthan Royals is having an edge over the other teams. That is where it stands unique, where the numbers and the records of the players, the data are actually considered very seriously before picking in any player. They're very particular on what they need, very particular on what they actually need for the hour, what holes to be filled. And so that is where, I mean, that is how a normal cricket fan supports a team and a cricket passionate freak supports a team. And I mean, watching cricket for around 19, 20 years, I think data driven factor is something that pulled me towards Rajasthan Royals, and I'm rightly supporting it.
Right, right. So, but India is a country where Indian players are given demigod kind of a status. And when you have a player like Rahul Dravid in the team, joining the team, then it brings a lot of Indian fan base also to the franchise. So, how important was Rahul Dravid's inclusion in the team? And then he led Rajasthan Royals as a captain. So, an Indian captain leading the franchise after Shane Warne. And similarly, if we draw parallels, now we have another situation where after another Aussie captain, now we have an Indian captain leading the franchise. So, what differences do you see between these two periods?
Yeah, fantastic comparison actually. I love the way you had actually put it. So Rahul Dravid roped in for the year 2011 was a big move. The reason why I say is Rahul Dravid leading the Royals by from 2012. I mean, if you could remember 2011, he was actually under Shane Warne. So I mean, Rahul Dravid in Rajasthan Royals is a complete different story from Rahul Dravid in RCB. So RCB, he actually played a sideline role, but where he was not actually taking up the captaincy. I mean, he had actually given up the responsibility of captaincy right after the first season. So he was actually put on sidelines, and he was not actually considered to be an impact player in RCB, and that was the reason why he was dropped from RCB as well, or he was not retained by RCB as well. That I would call it in that terms. So he was actually a different story when you compare to Rahul Dravid in RCB and Rahul Dravid in Rajasthan Royals. Yes, I agree with you. He is one of those reasons where most of the Dravid fans, Rahul Dravid fans, had actually started following Rajasthan Royals. Yes, but it's not just due to the fame factor or the popularity factor that I talked about, but because the numbers of, I mean, not everyone will actually like Rahul Dravid. One who is actually technically inclined towards cricket will actually love Rahul Dravid. So not many people who would be inclined to the fantasy would be a fan of Rahul Dravid. I mean, anyone who is actually a sheer lover of the technique, sheer lover of the cricket, sheer lover of the cricket textbook factors would be loving Rahul Dravid. So all those cricket fans were now inclined to Rajasthan Royals now. I mean, I knew a lot of people who had been fans of Rahul Dravid had been following the Rajasthan Royals. So and also instantly he made an impact. Say for an instance, Sanju Samson, who was at the age of 18, was actually roped in amidst the main players in the side, amidst the foreign players who were actually esteemed so high. He had the guts to bring in Sanju Samson in the middle order and to get the most out of it. And not just that, he had even got the guts to make a player like Praveen Tambe, who's above 40 years of age, into the playing 11. I mean, he is really talented and skilled, and he is actually a match winner, Praveen Tambe. There's no doubt about it. But how many captains would actually be ready or will be agreeing to the fact that a 40-year-old will be making a debut? So in this way, debuting a player who's of 18 years, a debuting a player of 40 plus age. I mean, that is what Rahul Dravid's captaincy about. That sums up everything. So he just made sure that cricket is a sport of passion and skill, and not just about the age or any other numbers, any other personal numbers or a fame or a popularity. So he just made sure that has been the brand, and that has been continuing. If you look at SSP Jaiswal, if you look at Akash Singh, or if you look at Chetan Sakaria, Rajasthan Royals have made it a brand style where they're actually investing a lot on the youngsters. Or even if a player like Praveen Tambe is actually aged enough, but still not getting a chance, they're ready to take a chance out of it. So that is the brand set by Rahul Dravid, and the legacy is actually continuing. So that's the impact of that's the post captaincy of Rahul Dravid, that you're seeing an impact over the Rajasthan Royals management, and it's continuing as well. So that's the impact of Dravid taking up the captaincy in 2012 and Rajasthan Royals after that.
Right, right. So when we talk about talent, so Rajasthan Royals always had this knack of picking up players who are uncapped, and then they go on and they make a big name about themselves season after season. We see every season one of the uncapped players becoming a hero for Rajasthan Royals. And now we are seeing a similar trend in another franchise called Delhi Capitals, where we are seeing that now a lot of players from Delhi Capitals are now playing for the Indian team, and a lot of former Rajasthan Royals players are also now in Delhi Capitals. So, so do you think there is a kind of shift in thinking and fan base that was once following Rajasthan Royals, and they are now following Delhi Capitals for the same reason that why they were following Rajasthan Royals?
Yeah, agree to the fact. I mean, Delhi Capitals, I should actually appreciate the kind of thinking they're actually having, the kind of brand they're actually projecting to a star team that has got the likes of Nortje or Rabada. I mean, being led by someone as young as Shreyas Iyer, that itself tells you a story that the team is not actually fame driven or just flamboyance driven. So the team is just relying on the Indian talent. They're just making the name sound big. So I totally agree. Delhi Capitals have put up a good remark on their brand name. I don't think the fans who had been following Rajasthan Royals had started following Delhi Capitals. There might be a few, but it's all up to the individual choices. So I mean, once again, the reason which I feel the Delhi Capitals have been thinking in this way was that Rahul Dravid had been part of Delhi Capitals for a couple of years, if I'm not wrong. The couple of years that Rajasthan Royals were banned, I think Rahul Dravid had a part to do. I mean, he had been mentoring the Delhi Capitals as well. So I think when you have someone like Rahul Dravid in your management for a year or so, I mean, goodness is contagious. When you have some technique that actually proves the value, proves the worth. And when it has got its own standard, people will just get inclined to that. And when Rahul Dravid has taken up the role of coaching the India under 19 and India A and leading the NCA right now, he was not given the opportunity. I mean, he was not ready to take up the opportunity for mentoring any of those IPL franchises. So they just wanted to have that particular brand, that caliber going forward. So you had seen Ricky Ponting if you see even Saurav Ganguly was actually part of Delhi Capitals and Mohammad Kaif. So they're actually trusting on those senior players could do a big change. So I mean, even before before Rahul Dravid, you could not see much of those big names associated with Delhi Capitals. But after the arrival of Rahul Dravid, or after his departure, you could see such uh, such discipline has been happening with Delhi Capitals. So I don't see much of the shift or switch from Rajasthan Royals going to supporting to Delhi Capitals. But even if it happens, it's up to the individual choices. But I feel it's a healthy situation that's prevailing with Delhi Capitals, which I would like to see all the franchises should be doing. And that is where the tournament gets healthier.
Right. So you talked about having a sound and a talented supporting staff in the franchise setup. So how important is it to have that kind of support staff whom we have seen growing up? For example, SRH has VVS Lakshman and Muthaiya Muralidharan. We have all seen them while growing up. Similarly, MI has that kind of setup. Mahila Jayawardene and all. DC has that kind of setup. And now with the inclusion of Sangakara in RR setup, so how important is that going to be in terms of fan following?
Fan following, if you look, people will be actually looking at the big names of a management or a franchise or a team. So if you just take the paper and look at the 8 teams. Okay, now RR is a team which hasn't got much of the Indian probable playing 11. If you say Sanju Samson was someone who just played for India, Rahul Tewatia is someone who is actually going to get a chance. And I mean, you don't have players like Rohit Sharma himself, or for an instance, a Gautam Gambhir or a Virendra Sehwag. There were no big names except for Rahul Dravid. There were no big names in the RR squad. So for someone like a common man who has been searching for big names in every team just to start following a team. You need big names like Mahila Jayawardene, or for instance Kumar Sangakkara, or Ricky Ponting, or for someone who has been watching cricket for late 90s or early 2000s. These names actually fascinate you more. These names are actually some names which would actually inspire the viewership. So big names are actually very important, without which you cannot you cannot actually have the fan base. I agree to that. But as I told you earlier, IPL is not just about the flamboyance, it shouldn't be a fame driven activity, or it shouldn't be a popularity driven activity. The reason why I see these big names should be part of the franchise and team is that they pour in a lot of experience to the players. So if you have someone like a Shane Warne or a Kumar Sangakkara or a Mahila Jayawardene sitting alongside you and pouring in a lot of experience, that actually reflects in the game of the players. How often can you see a Rahul Tewatia talking to someone like Shane Warne? I mean, he would have not dreamt about it even in his childhood. So big names are actually needed, not just on the perspective of having a proper fan base, but it is needed to have a proper reflection in the field, on the field. That's what I say, because big names like Kumar Sangakkara or Jayawardene will actually have a big impact to the players. There are such a confidence boost. The players will have a lot of learnings from them. They will have that exposure to a lot of lessons, how to manage pressure, how to build a partnership, how to take wickets, how to break partnership. They'll have a lot of knowledge coming from players such as Kumara Sangakkara or Mahila Jayawardena. So that is where it stands. And if you look at the fan perspective, yes, I agree. Big names are actually pulling a lot of viewership and support from the fans. Yes, I agree, but that's a different perspective. But for me, the main aspect of having big names in the side, like Kumar Sangakkara, is to pour in your experience, the international experience to the players and making them the superstars. So that's the impact of having big names in the side.
Right, right. So let me give you a counter example. So, what makes IPL an interesting commodity for every cricket fan? A Brandon McCullum scoring 158 not out, or a Manish Pandey becoming the first Indian to score a century in IPL. Similarly, what makes Rajasthan Royals interesting? A Ben Stokes scoring a century, or a Tewatia scoring a very special knock against Kings 11 Punjab?
For me, I take a Manish Pandey scoring a debut Indian 100 far more superior than a Brendan McCullum bashing 100 of the first match. The reason why I say this is Brendan McCullum is of international standard, and it's not the first time that he has actually faced someone like a Praveen Kumar or a Dale Steyn in a tournament. So, whereas if you look at Manish Pandey, he would have not dreamt about playing against players like Shoaib Akhtar or Jack or alongside Jack Callis or someone like Rahul Dravid or an Anil Kumble. He would have not dreamt it. I mean, he was a Karnataka player, and I mean, someone like Manish Pandey being named as a first Indian to score 100 in the history of IPL, that sounds bigger for me. Not Brendan McCullum. If not IPL, he would have scored 100 in Big Bash. If not Big Bash, he would have gone for a CPL or a PSL. Or even if not, he has got his own international arena to prove his worth. But what about Manish Pandey? How will people know Manish Pandey? Manish Pandey will be known by the 100 that he scored in the second season of IPL. He was the first Indian to do so. And when it comes to Rajasthan Royal as well, uh, Ben Stokes, the world knows Ben Stokes. He has actually finished the match the way he has actually finished the match with Jack Leach in the Ashes. That tells a story about him. And it's not just this 100 that is going to say a story about him. No, he has actually proven enough in the international arena. So he's just a value add to the squad. But Rahul Tewatia, how often will you talk about Rahul Tewatia if he had not played the way that he did in the last season? So instantly, that single over of Sheldon Cottrell had actually got him on the headlines. So Rahul Tewatia being a match winner and Manish Pandey being the first Indian to score 100, that is what matters big to me, because that is the kind of setup every young boy, from a typical Indian family has been brought up. And that is what sets up an example for the younger generation or the generation to come for playing cricket is actually watching. So I think that matters to me a lot than Brendan McCullum or a Ben Stokes scoring 100. I don't matter it less, but what I consider huge is Rahul Tewatia or Manish Pandey scoring 100.
Oh, I guess that's a brilliant answer. And IPL is all about unearthing the young talent and bringing out new faces in front of the cricketing fraternity. So, when Rajasthan Royals talk about bringing out this new talent, and then they on their social media campaigns, they talk about slogans like Halla Bol and all. So, what does that kind of slogans mean to you as a Rajasthan Royals fan? What does Halla Bol represents?
Halabol represents that your game should be louder than what you actually are. If you look at the sides, I mean, Shane Warne was actually an aggressive captain. Let's put him aside. But after that, Rahul Dravid was not that vocal or that loudmouth. He is someone who is actually very calm and quiet, but his approach and his game talks louder than what he actually is. So even if you look at Sanju Samson, who is actually a new recruit for the captaincy of Rajasthan Royals, he's actually someone who is actually very calm and quiet. But we know how belligerent and how loud his performances are. So Hala Ball is something that is more related to the game itself, the brand of the cricket itself, and not mandatorily associated with the person or with the playing 11 or whom or any particular single person the team is actually concerned about. It is about the performance that is going to be louder than the individual players itself. So that is how it is. The performance talks. Halabol. That's the perspective that I would like to relate to Halabol, because if you see, calmness and quiet approach had been the mantra set by Rahul Dravid or Sanju Samson. But when it comes to the performances, they're actually louder as loud as any performance you would see from any other franchise. So the performance talks louder than the players themselves. So that's what I see Halabol.
Right, right. So, as the performance matters the most, so the players who are there to give that kind of performance. So, Rajasthan Royals has been over reliant on their overseas players, and there is another franchise called Sunrisers Hyderabad. They are also over reliant on their overseas players, apart from their bowling lineup, which is far their Indian bowling lineup, which is far better than Rajasthan Royals. So when the Sunrise Hyderabad call themselves as Orange Army, why not Rajasthan Royals call themselves as Pink Army? Because they are the only one with the pink colored jersey.
Uh, well, it's all about the management and the franchise choices, I would say. Uh, it's how the management will prefer to be called. So Orange Boys, that's how Orange Army is, how SRH were actually proud to be called. But Halabol is actually a term itself. So I'm not sure if the Rajasthan Royals would be okay being called as Pink Boys, but I don't actually object because I mean you're donning a pink jersey, and that's because of a couple of reasons. You're from Jaipur. I mean you're aside from predominantly based on Jaipur, and also Rajasthan of late Rajasthan Royals had been related to most of the feminist related activities, supporting the feminism and uh, working hard and for the I mean in the background, which actually promotes the welfare of the women. So I think being called as Pink Boys, it wouldn't be a huge surprise, or I wouldn't object actually. But it's all about how the management is going to project itself being called. So I don't object, but it's all the call of the management and branches. So even if they say that Pink Boys are going to fascinate them or going to motivate them, then we are fine to be called as Pink Boys, and we are fine with that as well.
Right, right. So during this discussion, I had a brilliant pattern in my mind. So let me see your views on it. So Rajasthan Royals had a Aussie captain in Shane Warne, then Rahul Dravid took over. Then Shane Warne became the captain, then Ajit Rahane took over. Then Steve Smith became a captain, and now Sanju Samson took over. So which Aussie player do you see will lead Rajasthan Royals in future?
Well, that's an interesting question. But if you just look at the current Rajasthan Royals squad, it's predominantly English driven, be Josh Butler or Ben Stokes or Jofra Archer. So I don't see an Aussie who would be actually donning the side. And I mean, I don't see an Aussie actually playing in the IPL. I mean, as many tournaments as Shane Warne or Steve Smith or Shane Watson had done. So I don't see that pattern in mind, because I would say, I mean, the reason why I say this, Sanju Samson is a new recruit, and he has got a lot of experience, and also he has got a few years of captaincy. Even if he's going to perform well, hopefully, we're actually optimistic on him that he's just going to perform well, and is just going to gift us the trophy. He's just going to lift the trophy. So with that belief, I don't see any Australian taking up the captaincy, or be it any other English player taking up the captaincy, for the immense belief that I have on Sanju Samson. Because he is just going to be the same captain as how Rahul Dravid was for Rajasthan Royals. I mean, he was someone who took over from Shane Warne. So now Sanju Samson is someone who is going to take it over from Steve Smith. So unlike Rahul Dravid, Sanju Samson has got I mean, a minimum of 8 or 9 years of cricket left with him. So I don't think it's going to be a story that is going to be ending so shortly. Sanju Samson will be a captain for at least 6 or 7 years, if I'm not wrong, from now on. And meanwhile, if there is going to be some Australian player who's going to be creating an impact as Steve Smith or a Shane Watson, then there are chances for an Australia to be considered. But for now, I think Sanju Samson is a perfect candidate, and he'll continue to be a successful captain. I am so optimistic about that.
Right. I really like your optimism. So my probably the last question of this episode is going to be that after the first season win, the Rajasthan Royals didn't win any IPL trophy. And now we have some other franchisees who are also trying to build that kind of squad that can go all the way. Like Delhi Capitals, they are improving year after year. Royal Challengers Bangalore, they have also reached the playoffs last season, and now Kings 11 Punjab with a new Indian captain in KL Rahul, they are also building that kind of a squad that can go all the way. So if you have to pick one franchise among these four that can win the title first before another title of Mumbai Indians or Chennai Super Kings, then which franchisee would it be?
No, it would be RR. I mean, I would not let down RR because RR is, I mean, is some serious team that is actually considering Sanju Samson as its captain. I mean, it is some management that actually debuted Sanju Samson, groomed Sanju Samson, and made Sanju Samson as its reliable top order batsman. And they're just relying on Sanju Samson and believing on his captaincy and just recruiting as a captain. So I believe that Rajasthan Royals would be setting the standard that you talk about, being the title winner. So I really wish to see Sanju Samson lifting the trophy for Rajasthan Royals. And I agree, the counterparts, KL Rahul, Shreyas Iyer, are actually doing good. But I would be happy if all these four teams make to the playoff, and the upcoming season would be about teams which are led by these young boys who are actually competing each other in the playoffs, and hopefully Sanju Samson lifts the trophy. That's the dream of the Rajasthan Royals fans like.
That's a brilliant answer from your heart as a super royal. But does your analyst mind support the same thought?
Yeah, if you ask me before the auction, my actually reasoning sense will actually stop me thinking that we have some holes to be filled. But if you talk to me after the auction, the holes were actually filled. I mean, except for a big name than Sanju Samson in the playing 11 or in the squad, I don't see there is going to be much of any weakness or vulnerability in Rajasthan Royals side, because all the problems or all the shortcomings have been addressed. So I mean, my reasoning ability after the auction firmly believes that what I believe is going to happen and rightly will happen. I mean, I believe, and I'm very much optimistic that I will be seeing that as well happening in the real time as well.
So that's a brilliant answer from you. So before we end, I would like to know more about your journey as a Rajasthan Royals fan, and what is that one memory that you feel is very closest to your heart as a Rajasthan Royals supporter.
The partnership between James Faulkner and Steve Smith, that actually stays as an evergreen memory. But am I permitted to mention a few more here, because I have mentioned one?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, I mean, Praveen Tambe making a hat trick and making an improbable win against KKR. That's one fond memory. And another memory of Brad Hodge actually taking the game over the line against SRH and making that cradle baby celebration. So that stays a evergreen memory as well. And off late, the Rahul Tewatia's lifetime lessons. So life can just be just turned on its head just like in the moment. Just with a tap, a life can change. So you need to believe in yourself. So these were the evergreen memories. But ahead of everything, the Steve Smith and James Faulkner show against RCB. Has been a favorite opponent of us. So that's a very fond memory that stays close to my heart.
Right. So that's a brilliant answer. So I was thinking of one of Rahul Dravid's innings that you will mention here. So
Yeah, I mean, all this had happened when Rahul Dravid had actually been the captain or he had been mentoring or coaching the team. So Rahul Dravid himself will be happy if he listens to all these performances because he's a team man actually, not just an individual person. So he would be happy as well if he listens to my answer. So do I.
So that's another brilliant answer. So thanks, Dinesh, for this wonderful interview. And thanks for taking out your time and giving such wonderful insights from an analytical point of view, as well as from a from your heart as a super royal. So thank you very much. I hope the
Yeah,
viewers like this episode.
yeah, thanks a lot, Deep. Actually, it's a huge privilege. The last 1 year or so had been happiest year in terms of my cricket analytics. I had been recognized as a super royal, and now I've got a privilege of someone who himself is a cricket analyst interviewing me on the fanboy journey. So it's an absolute privilege. Thank you so much for the opportunity given. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The questions were fantabulous. I really enjoyed it, and it just took the answer right from within the heart. So I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Looking forward for more. It was an amazing session with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Have a
thank
nice
you. Yeah,